In 1902, President Teddy Roosevelt was taking part in a bear hunting competition in Mississippi. After a long hunt, some of his hunting companions and their dogs managed to chase down and tie a black bear to a tree. They told Teddy Roosevelt to shoot the bear, but he rejected this, claiming that killing a tied up animal was not the action of a true hunter, especially one that he did not pursue himself. He did tell them to kill the bear themselves to put it out of its misery, though, and this became immortalized in a political cartoon by Clifford Berryman, featuring a cute little bear. Seeing this cute little bear drawing with its large eyes, a Russian Jewish businessman who immigrated to the United States by the name of Morris Mitchum would be inspired to create the teddy bear. It was called the teddy bear in response to Teddy Roosevelt's quasi-compassion for the supposedly cute bear. This bear, with baby-like features of a larger than usual set of eyes to its head size and a larger head compared to its body, as well as its nice rounded ears and its lack of claws and teeth, would become a hit in New York City's toy stores and would eventually overtake the retail world. The story outlines not only the duality of Teddy Roosevelt's relationship with nature, an avid game hunter who killed several animals for sport, but also a devout conservationist who set up the national park system. It also represents the human relationship with bears, an animal oftentimes viewed as cute and cuddly, but also as man-eating beasts. Found in Eurasia, North America, and to a far lesser extent South America, bears oftentimes make up the apex predators of various biomes around the world, with their bulky, powerful bodies, snouts, and non-retractable claws, along with their stubby tails. These iconic figures have become stars of megafauna across much of the temperate and colder climates of the world, and to a far lesser extent, the tropics. After all, the large volume, lots of fat, and thick fur have made their builds better suited to the frigid north of the Arctic and the mountains and forests of the chilly temperate parts of the world, rather than the hot humid climates of the tropics. Even the few bears that do thrive in the tropics, like the sun bear of Southeast Asia, is the smallest in the world and isn't quite as tubby, and by and large doesn't even need the lard as it would oftentimes deal with overheating in the hot jungle. Nonetheless, most bears are still suited to colder climates, in which most hibernate during the harshest months that only Canadians, Russians, and other criminally insane people would consider walking in. Bears, as you already know, are not a monolith. Some, like the polar bear, eat meat from fish, whales, and seals, as well as produce like kales and avocado, which are not particularly common on the Arctic Ocean shelf. Okay, that last part was BS. Anyway, moving on, there are also black bears, who are rather fond of eating campers' garbage. Black and brown bears are opportunistic eaters, chowing down on fish, small mammals, birds, berries, tubers, and not just honey, but entire beehives. On the other end of the dietary spectrum are pandas, which are specialists, mostly eating bamboo and not much else. They are by and large the outlier, being the least intimidating to humans, and certainly being far less intimidating than grizzly bears. In sharp contrast to grizzly bears, pandas, as most of you know, just kind of suck at being life forms, which I'll get onto as we move on to conservation. Given the bear's size and occasional ferocity, some bears are one of the few types of animals that can actually prey on humans, usually in the context of humans venturing out into the wilds to hunt, fish, hike, or camp. However, even then, the number of people killed by bears each year in North America and Europe can be counted with your fingers. Most bears will flee as a response to humans. This is by and large the case with black bears at the very least, which lack the size and strength to really take on most adult human males. And I say most. Many of the attacks are oftentimes caused by mother bears who are overprotective of their offspring. In the case of a shortage of vegetation or game, bears will sometimes try to eat humans for food. And in other instances, less intimidating black bears will oftentimes attack humans for being in their territory. Generally speaking, you can scare away a black bear by smashing pots and pans at your campsite. That should do the trick. and Asian black bears are pretty much so shy that they're not going to even bother with you to begin with. Attacks by brown bears are a lot less common, probably because they by and large are far less populous than black bears and oftentimes live in more remote locations. However, their size and strength makes them far, far more deadly when they do attack humans. Whether it was in Western Europe, native Siberia, or the Native Americans, brown bears tend to evoke a great deal of terror and respect, similar to that of other apex predator megafauna like lions, tigers, jaguars, sharks, and crocodiles. The Greeks looked up to the skies and saw bears in the sky in the form of what we now know as the Big and Little Dippers. In Latin, these refer to Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, meaning big bear and little bear. I really don't see how they look like bears, so I'm assuming that they just took some LSD. I mean, just take a look at this. Does this look anything like a bear? Really? Anyway. The stories of bears probably stretch far further back than those of the classical ages, as we oftentimes see paintings in caves that depicted bears, both as the hunted and the hunters of man, in a zero-sum game. But not one that was purely demonized. Oftentimes these beasts were to be revered for their power and strength. As a result of this, bears have found themselves as subjects of countless myths, legends, folktales, and pieces of pop culture, stretching across the temperate climates of the world where bears make up the largest carnivorous megafauna. They would inevitably become a subject of religious rituals and spiritual beliefs. The indigenous Ainu people of Japan, who dominated the islands before the current ethnic Japanese people came about, would engage in bear festivals, in which a bear was sacrificed. However, this practice has been banned in recent years due to animal welfare concerns. The sacrifice of the bear was tied to the concept of sending a spirit off into another world. This theme of transitioning from one world to the other was loosely affirmed by other cultures, such as various Amerindian peoples of North America, seeing the hibernation process of the bear as a form of reawakening. Various Indo-European people groups, such as the Celts and Germanic peoples who inhabited much of the primeval forests of Europe, also looked up to the bear. But it was truly the Slavic peoples of what are now Russia who would make the bear their own symbol. As Spain had the bull, and England had the lion, and France had the rooster, Russia would outsize them all with the bear. For hundreds of years, bears had become a symbol of the Russian people, their government, military, society, and civilization, both exuding a great deal of respect and fear from various states that were nearby. After all, you wouldn't want to be swiped with one of those claws. In the eyes of Russians, the symbol of the bear was one of power, strength, and robustness. However, many Europeans saw it as a symbol of Russian barbarism and ineptitude, this big, hyper-aggressive, clumsy animal. This is the way that the Russian Empire was first represented in the eyes of many Western Europeans, and the USSR would eventually take that up as well, along with the Russian Federation, oftentimes seen as an example of Russian militarism and imperialism. The negative representation of the bear has in many ways galvanized Russian nationalists. Putin's ruling party, and pretty much the only party that has any substantial power in the autocratic country, is by and large represented by a bear on a Russian flag. However, bears were not always seen in a terrifying light. Throughout much of the Middle Ages, it was far more common to view them as a source of entertainment, to watch dancing bears. The bears actually weren't dancing, they were forced to walk on hot burning coals, which gave the illusion that they were dancing to music. Thankfully, this practice has become very uncommon today, as by and large Netflix is more entertaining than torturing animals. Nonetheless, there have been many forms of bears in pop culture, most notably Paddington Bear, which has become an icon of British children's literature, based off of the very, very rare Andean black bear from Peru, even though the actual character is based in England. But given the fact that these bears are a lot friendlier than European ones, I guess it makes sense. After all, England is also the birthplace of the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. The story is oftentimes illustrative of problems of opposite extremes, whether that be temperature or the softness of a bed, and by and large represents the all-around need for moderation. And of course, there is the most famous bear from England's children's literature, Winnie the Pooh. I still can't find a proper explanation of what the Pooh in Winnie the Pooh stands for and what the H is for at the end of Pooh. What I do know is that the franchise had a massive amount of staying power, with adaptations ranging from several books, comics, TV shows, etc., including the face of the current leader of China. And of course, there's the aforementioned teddy bear. It's interesting to see how such a large and oftentimes dangerous animal has been the staple of so much of children's entertainment. Today, bears have also been the subject of conservation efforts as their large size, slow gestation periods, and habitat loss have made them very vulnerable to climate change and other environmental factors. The most iconic of this is, of course, the panda, which almost exclusively eats bamboo. And this is despite the fact that bamboo doesn't really have that much nutritional value. And on top of that, their digestive system is not particularly good at digesting bamboo in the first place, meaning that it has to eat a ton of bamboo. They are not particularly horny. Females are quite picky when it comes to courtship. Their ovulation window is very short, and they only give birth to around 2 babies per year, if they ever give birth to any babies at all, and oftentimes the mothers neglect them and they die. In other words, pandas are failures of nature, except for one thing, their fluffy cuteness, which dupes humans into actually caring about them, rather than other endangered species like the Alabama cavefish, which as you can tell is not cute. The panda has also become the icon of the Chinese nation along with the mythical dragon. For this reason, the relationship between Russia and China are oftentimes framed as one between the brown bear and the panda bear. Another icon of conservation is the polar bear. Due to rising temperatures in the Arctic, many polar bears are drowning at sea without ice to rest upon, and as a result of this, polar bears have become a symbol of climate change, a way of empathizing with the victims of this impersonal global crisis. Looking back at all of this, it reminds me of the story of the teddy bear, an animal which is both robust and fearsome, but also very vulnerable. Thanks for watching.